What we're going to learn how to do today is how to draw a hex head for a thread in AutoCAD. Now I can use a reference picture from a technical drafting book, Spencer Daigen. If you take a look at this first figure A, hexagon head, it's very generalized as it shows me the dimensions that I need to draw that hex head. Okay, the first thing that I need to do is I need to draw this top view so I can have this hexagon. That way I can project lines over to my view with the actual side of the head. I'll need this 3/4 D, and anytime you see the letter D, that basically represents the major diameter. Now if I go back, I'm using a major diameter in this case of 0.75. So I'll need to have a calculator handy as well. If I go ahead and choose circle, I'm going to use the end of my center line to draw my circle. And for my radius, I'm going to type in 0.5625. Okay, now that I have my circle drawn, I can go to the polygon command. Okay, and I'm going to type in 6, and I'm going to specify the center here. And I'm going to say that I want this circumscribed about the circle. Okay, and I need to make sure that my flats are shown in this way. That way, when I project them down, they go down to the side view. So I'll click here since my circle's already there. Now this is a little close to that view, so I'm going to go ahead and move it over. That way it's out of the way. That way I've got a little bit more space to draw. Just going to move it straight over on the same center line. That way I've got a little bit more room. Now what I can do is I can go ahead and start drawing my lines for the view that I care about, the side view of the thread. Now if I go back and I look at the picture, the thickness of this thread, or the thickness of the head, is 2/3 D. Now if I go ahead and type in that my calculator, 2/3 times 0.75, I get 0.495. So I'm going to go ahead and offset this line, 0.495, and go from here to there. All right. I'm going to go ahead and draw some lines that go straight down from these corners. I'm going to project this corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner, and that's going to give me the edges I need for my hex head. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this straight over. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to draw this till it hits this line here. I'm going to draw another line here to that line. And I will go ahead and draw one more line down here. Now I'm going to use my trimming tool to make sure I have all the lines that I need to in the appropriate areas. So if I go to trim, and I'm going to use my extend tool, my shift button to give me my extend tool, to make sure I have all the lines long enough. There we go, and now I can go back and trim the pieces that I don't need. Here we go. Now if you go back and you look at the picture, you'll see that I've got this curvature here that I need to draw, and it's dimensioned with a diameter, with a radius of R. Now we know that the radius is basically half of the major diameter, and that's going to be 0.375. So I'll have to offset this line down. Now I want to offset that down, but I don't know how far I need to offset it to. If I go back to this picture, you can see there's this little triangle that starts at the corner and it goes down at a 60-degree angle. This angle here is 30 degrees. And the same thing, these two lines are going to determine where that center point is for the radius. So I need to start at this corner and go down until it intersects this center line, and that will give me the point for my radius for my circle. So I'm going to go to line. I'm going to choose this point. I'm going to use my angle tool, so I'm going to go select the less than button. I'm going to type in 330 degrees since that's -30. And I'm going to go all the way down and indicate that way it extends beyond the center line of my screw. I've got to do the same thing again except for the other corner here. using my angle tool. This time it's going to be positive 30 degrees, and I'll extend that there. Now I have the center point that I need to use to draw my circle. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the circle tool. For the center, I'm going to choose the intersection of this line, those two lines on the center, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on this end button here. And that is what I need to draw that curve. Now I can go back. I no longer need these angled lines here. I can go ahead and erase them. They're finished. And I can go ahead and trim these lines, this circle, this large circle here and here outside of these two lines. I'm going to go to the trim tool, select all, choose this, and I can erase the rest of the circle here, and I've got that center circle drawn. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to draw that little curvature right here. If I go back to the figure, you'll see that I've got this curvature as well. The issue is I'm not exactly sure where to draw that. I know that it's going to start here and it's going to end at the same point up here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line from here to the outside of that edge, and that's going to give me my second intersection point. My third point for the circle is going to be about halfway between these two lines. If I measure the distance here, and you're going to have to do this for each size screw that you have, depending upon the major diameter, but for my particular size, it measures 0.3248. I'm going to divide that by 2, and I'm going to offset this line up. That way I have my third point. And if I take 0.3248, divide that by 2, I get 0.1624. So I'm going to offset that line. I'm going to type in 0.1624. And I'm going to offset this line there so it's halfway. Now I'll have this point. I'll have this point, and this point I can use to draw my circles. So if I go to the circle command and I hit the 3 point, specify the first point here, here, and then there, and then I have my circle. And that looks very nice. You can see that it's starting to take shape. I've got to do some trimming now, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I go to trim. I'm going to select all. I'm going to trim this part of the circle, and I'm going to trim this part of the circle. And then I can go back and I can erase some lines. This line, I don't need this line anymore, and I don't need that line anymore. Also, while I'm here, I can trim this little section of that vertical line as well, and this here, and that there. Look how nice that looks. Now I've got to duplicate this curve to the other side, so I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. I'm going to do copy. I'm going to select this curve. My starting point is going to be here, and I'm going to just drag that down to this other section there, and where we go. Now I have to go back and I have to trim those lines as well. So I'm going to go ahead to trim, select all, trim this out, and trim that out. And it looks very nice. I only have a couple more lines to draw, and then I'm finished my thread representation. There is going to be a couple of small angular lines here and here. If I go back and I look at my photo, it's very hard to see, but there's some lines that go in at a 30-degree angle from either side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my line tool. I'm going to use my angle tool. And I have to remember that this is 270 degrees is vertical. So I'm going to go 270 minus 30, which is going to be 240. And I'm going to draw that straight down. Okay, now it's a little longer than I need, so I can go back and I can trim this. Select all. I'm going to use my extend tool to shift that out. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. And you can see I've got that nice angled line there. I'll erase this since I no longer need it. I need to do the same thing for the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and go to line, use my angle tool, and we are going to go 270 plus 30, which is going to be 300. And I'm going to go straight out to here. Now I'm going to go use my trim tool again, select all, extend this line out, and then trim this line away. And then I can erase this last little piece here. The very last step in drawing our screw with the hex head. If we go back to the picture again, we'll see that I've got this tiny little flat that's here that's 1.5D wide and it's a 64th thick. Now even though it's a 64th thick, the figure, going back and looking again, you can see that it calls for drawing it to 132. So if I go ahead and go to offset, and 132 is 0.03125. And there's that line. Now I need to offset. I need to draw a center line and then offset that so I can draw those two little edges right there. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line from this intersection point out. And I'm going to go to offset. And I'm going to type in 0.5625 because that's half of my dimension that I need to offset it to. So I'll offset that here, offset that here. I'm going to use my trim tool. I'm going to extend this out, extend that out, and then I'm going to go ahead and trim these little edges here. Clean that up so it looks very nice. And then erase these last lines that I no longer need. And we are finished. If you take a look, you can see how nice that looks.